I was standing at the airport, my mind drifting as I waited for my flight. It had been a long day at work, and I was eager to get home. That's when I saw him, Ethan. I hadn't seen Ethan in years, not since the hellish days of middle school. Back then, he was the reason I dropped out of high school, the reason I almost lost my future. Now, here he was, standing just a few feet away, completely unaware of the impact he had once had on my life. He hadn't changed a bit. As soon as his eyes locked on mine, his smirk reappeared, as if no time had passed. "Well, well, look who it is," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "Oliver, the dropout. Still a loser, I see." My fists clenched, but I kept my cool. I wasn't the same scared kid he used to torment, but seeing him stirred up emotions I thought I'd buried long ago. I took a deep breath and walked away without a word, leaving Ethan behind. But the encounter had shaken me more than I cared to admit. Memories of those dark days in school flooded my mind, but I couldn't let them consume me now. I had come too far to let him ruin my peace. Back in middle school, Ethan was the popular kid. He was charming, outgoing, and everyone seemed to adore him. I was the opposite, quiet, serious, and focused on my studies. I wasn't great at making friends, so when Ethan first approached me, I was relieved. We had both played soccer in elementary school, and for a brief moment, I thought maybe we could be friends. But things took a dark turn quickly. What started as friendly teasing escalated into something much worse. Ethan had a way of turning everything I did into a joke, and soon I became the target of his cruel sense of humor. At first, I laughed along, thinking it was harmless. But soon, the laughter became directed at me, not with me. Ethan made sure I was always the butt of the joke, and the more I protested, the worse it got. He would wrestle me to the ground in front of everyone, and no one would step in to stop it. They'd just laugh, enjoying the spectacle. It was like I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't escape. I tried to endure it. I convinced myself it was just part of growing up, that I could handle it. But every day, it got harder. One day, while walking down the hallway, Ethan slapped the back of my head as he often did, but something in me snapped. "Stop it," I said, turning to face him, my voice firmer than I intended. Ethan looked surprised, then annoyed. "What's with you, Oliver? Getting all moody on me? I let you hang out with us, don't forget that. You should be having fun." "It's not fun," I said through gritted teeth. That was all it took. From that moment on, Ethan's teasing turned into full-blown harassment. He gathered his friends, and together they made my life unbearable. They mocked me, humiliated me, and made sure I knew I didn't belong. I stopped going to soccer practice. Then I stopped going to school altogether. By the time I reached 8th grade, I was barely holding it together. My grades slipped, and I found myself missing weeks of school. My parents tried to help, but they didn't know what I was going through. No one really did, except for one person, Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown was my 7th grade English teacher. He had a way of noticing things other teachers didn't. He saw how Ethan and his friends treated me and pulled me aside one day after class. "Oliver, is everything okay?" he asked, his voice filled with genuine concern. I didn't know what to say at first, but somehow the words came tumbling out. I told him everything, how Ethan had been tormenting me, how I couldn't take it anymore. Mr. Brown listened patiently, never interrupting, and when I finished, he placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "You don't have to go through this alone," he said. "I'll help you." And he did. Mr. Brown became my safe place at school. Every day after classes, I would go to his prep room, where he would let me vent or sometimes just sit in silence. He even tried talking to Ethan, but it didn't stop the bullying. Still, knowing that someone cared gave me the strength to keep going, at least for a while. High school was a fresh start for most kids, but for me, it was more of the same. To my dismay, Ethan ended up in the same school as me. Worse, we were in the same class. The moment he saw me, he made sure everyone knew who I was. The guy who got picked on, the guy who never fought back. Ethan grabbed my collar in front of the class and loudly declared, "This is Oliver. He loves getting teased. Let's show him how much fun high school can be." The laughter that followed felt like knives digging into my skin. The harassment resumed, worse than ever before. Teachers turned a blind eye, and eventually I stopped going to school. I couldn't take it anymore. My spirit was broken. I failed to meet the credit requirements, and by the end of that year, I dropped out. The person who reached out to me, yet again, was Mr. Brown. He came to my house apologizing for not being able to do more, but I knew it wasn't his fault. He brought information on alternative schooling options, suggesting I try correspondence or night school. I was hesitant, but with his encouragement and my parents' support, I decided to give it a shot. For the first time in years, I felt like I had control over my life again. I enrolled in a correspondence course and started studying for my high school diploma. It wasn't easy, but I threw myself into my studies, determined to make something of myself. Around that time, my parents took me on a trip to give me a break from all the stress. It was my first time flying on a plane, and as soon as we took off, I felt a rush of excitement I hadn't felt in years. Looking out the window, watching the world shrink below me, I felt free for the first time in a long time. I want to fly, I thought. I want to be a pilot. That trip changed everything for me. When I returned home, I told Mr. Brown about my new dream. He was thrilled for me, encouraging me every step of the way. With his support and my newfound sense of purpose, I pushed through my studies and earned my high school equivalency. From there, I applied to aviation school and got accepted. Aviation school was tough, but I was determined. I worked harder than I ever had before, and with every flight, my confidence grew. I earned my pilot's license, but I didn't stop there. I wanted to be the best, so I applied for a scholarship to study advanced aviation technology in Germany. To my surprise, I got it. Studying abroad opened new doors for me. I wrote a research paper on the impact of lateral forces on aircraft tires, which received more recognition than I ever expected. By the time I finished my PhD, I felt like I had truly achieved something. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just running from my past. I was flying towards my future. After graduating, I considered staying in Germany, but my parents were waiting for me back home. So I returned to the US and got a job as a commercial pilot for a major airline in New York. Life was finally looking up. Years had passed since I last saw Ethan, but one day, as I was walking through the airport in my pilot's uniform, there he was. He didn't recognize me at first, but as I got closer, his face twisted into that familiar sneer. "Oliver, is that you?" he asked, disbelief dripping from his voice. "What are you doing here? Working as a janitor?" His words stung, but this time they didn't hurt like they used to. I smiled calmly. "Actually, I'm the pilot of this flight." Ethan's face fell. He stared at me, speechless as I walked away. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had won, but the encounter left me feeling uneasy. Ethan had no remorse, no understanding of the pain he had caused me. And while I had moved on, it seemed like he was still stuck in the past. Later that day, while I was inspecting the aircraft before takeoff, I saw Ethan again. He was working as a mechanic at the airport. He walked over, swinging a tool in his hand as if he were about to hit me. "Still scared, huh?" he sneered. "Just kidding, dropout." Before I could respond, one of the flight attendants called out to me. "Captain, it's time to prepare for takeoff." Ethan's smirk vanished as he realized what she had called me, Captain. He stood frozen in disbelief as I walked away, leaving him behind once more. But that wasn't the end of it. During the flight, everything was going smoothly until we hit an unexpected storm. The turbulence was worse than anything I had experienced before, and for a moment, I felt a surge of panic. The aircraft shook violently, and I could hear the terrified voices of the passengers through the cockpit door. But I had trained for this. My years of experience kicked in, and I guided the plane through the storm, keeping a steady hand on the controls. It was a tense few minutes, but eventually, we made it through. The plane stabilized, and we landed safely at our destination. After the flight, an investigation revealed something shocking. Someone had tampered with the aircraft before takeoff. The culprit was Ethan. Security footage showed him deliberately damaging a crucial part of the plane. When confronted, Ethan denied everything. But when he saw me, his face turned pale. The authorities weren't convinced by his lies, and eventually, he broke down, admitting what he had done. He was arrested and faced criminal charges for his actions. As I watched him being led away, I couldn't help but feel a strange mix of emotions. Anger Yes, but also pity. Ethan had spent his whole life trying to pull me down, and now he had destroyed his own future in the process. With Ethan behind bars, I could finally put the past to rest. But life had one more surprise in store for me. Azrania Anderson, the flight attendant who had witnessed my confrontation with Ethan, asked me out to dinner a few days later. We had worked together for years, but I had never seen her outside of work. Over dinner, we talked, laughed, and shared stories, and I realized that I had found someone who truly understood me. Before long, we were dating, and life felt brighter than ever. Together, we traveled the world, creating new memories in places like France, Sweden, and Australia. Each trip felt like a step further from the painful past and closer to a future filled with happiness. Now I'm planning to propose to Ms. Anderson. I never thought I'd find love after everything I'd been through, but here I am. I'm also planning to invite Mr. Brown to the wedding, the man who saved me when I was at my lowest. He has always believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. Looking back, I realize that life is full of unexpected twists and turns. You can't always control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. I'm no longer the scared kid Ethan once tormented. I've grown, I've moved on. And now I'm ready to start a new chapter of my life, with the people who matter most by my side. As I prepare for the next flight, I can't help but smile. Life, much like flying, is about navigating through the turbulence, staying steady, and finding your way through the clouds